Welcome, guys. So I just wanted to hop on and welcome you guys all here. And I've been getting a bunch of questions about what the format and breakdown of the 7-day Femdon Annihilator exactly is. So I figured that I would hop on here and answer a couple of the recurring questions that I have been getting over the last day, and essentially make a couple of free videos that I will post that'll actually be like individual lessons from either the 7-day challenge or from Femdom Destroyer, the 12-month course. Just so you can kind of get a little bit of a better idea about some of the lessons. But in general, the breakdown is lessons, like a video lesson on one of the topics, whether it be anger, courage, purpose, self-love, core identity, something revolving around that in a video lesson. And then there are generally either short videos where I go through missions for that day or for the 12-month course for that month. And then I usually have a guided release or visualization, which are really powerful and something that I have, number one, helped me tremendously. And this is like, for me, I've kind of developed this specific system of going through the different energy levels and then creating special guided releases around each one. And there are other courses that I've seen that do similar things like that, but what I have not seen that I believe is my kind of proprietary system, if you will, is incorporating in visualizations that I generally kind of will go into improvisationally in the... Yeah, so I just had a bug like kamikaze right into my face. That's the problem with filming here with all the lights, is that these like these big beetles, and they are super aggressive, and they literally will fly right into your face, like, and then they'll try to land, and then they don't just ricochet off your face. They will like cling onto you and even like bite you. So it's I just deal with them, you know. It's just part of being in the summer and having been right under lights. But yeah, they're pretty vicious. But anyway, going back to the guided releases and the visualizations, I really kind of will go into, and I was filming a bunch of visualizations last night where I kind of just improvised a lot of them. And I had one really good one that was about reclaiming courage. And maybe I'll even throw a little bit of that one into either the end of this video or into another video that I put out. But those are incredibly helpful. And there's been a couple spiritual and meditation books that I've read where I've taken some ideas from that. And but I also put my own spin on it. But anyway, my point is that I haven't really seen anyone else do that. And by the way, I also, and I'm not doing this to toot my own horn, but I have not found, I know there's a lot of content around porn addiction, but I've never found any other guy that's openly created courses or direct content around Femdom. And I think it's something that, as I've said, is a huge problem. At least for me it was. And I know that there's thousands of guys that are like me. So I think that it's a much bigger problem than we realize. And I think that especially with COVID-19 and a lot of the lockdowns, my guess is that it has like 10x'd over the last 12 months, just because more people are at home, more people are on their cell phones, more people are on their computers, not going out as much, not socializing as much, a whole host of reasons. But that's my guess, is that it's compounded dramatically since COVID as well. And it was already, in my opinion, really bad. So the 7-day challenge is really centered around video lessons, missions, challenges, and then guided releases and visualizations. And then at the end of the 7 days, I have a bonus section where I post just ideas that I feel like would help or that have directly helped me beat Femdom. And I always film those with kind of like a first-hand experience type of mentality, things that have directly helped me kind of address what I feel like is probably similar with a lot of other guys. But I also think there's a lot of different reasons why guys will relapse on Femdom. I think a lot of it has to do with never clearing your subconscious, and a lot of the ideas in both courses that I've created, both the 7-Day Annihilator and Femdom Destroyer, I've pulled from Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins and Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, as well as a lot of other books, but a lot of the kind of core energy ideas revolve around those two books. So I would highly recommend reading those two, because that'll start to give you an idea of a lot of the baggage that you're holding in your subconscious. But of course, they're pretty long books, so like I've taken a lot of the key ideas with my own spin and my own experience, because of course in books like that, they don't talk about Femdom. You just have to extrapolate the ideas of like release work and energy work and apply them directly to Femdom. But I think that for me, because I was in the trenches for so long battling Femdom addiction, I know the experience with all the kind of intricacies associated with Femdom, the self-sabotage, but I also know like the specific like kind of fetishes within Femdom, because Femdom in itself is kind of just like an umbrella term, and then you have a lot of specific kind of destructive fetishes under the Femdom umbrella, and I've dealt with all of those personally myself as well. So I think that for me, I'm able to really address all the different angles. And so, but what I also wanted to tie in is that and this is going to actually be the video that I'll post at the end of this little introduction here, is one of the intro videos in the challenge where I talk about getting to the root cause. And essentially the idea is that why so many guys fail and why I failed for so long is that you are trying to fight the Femdom addiction. So you think of yourself as being an entity. This is you. And what ends up happening is that because you've never cleared your subconscious, and a lot of what we do in life when it comes to stuff like addictions and relapses is because we never cleared our subconscious. And so what is your subconscious? Well, it's essentially you have all this crap that you've accumulated because you go through events in your life that you never released. Maybe they were traumatic. Maybe you just didn't know how to deal with them. They could have even happened when you were a little kid and you just completely buried them because you had no idea at all how to deal with them. But anyway, the point is you've accumulated all this in your subconscious, and then what happens is because you never cleared it, you didn't know how to release, it starts manifesting on this outer external layer in your life with addictions, self-sabotage, success barriers, substance abuse. So there's millions of different things to how it can manifest. But with Femdom addiction, essentially this is you. You've never cleared your subconscious. On this external layer is then Femdom addiction. And what most guys are gonna do is they're gonna either think, and this is what I thought for a long time, I'm gonna just need to build this insane amount of willpower, and eventually I'm gonna have so much willpower and so much just ability to say no to it that I'll just be able to never watch it again. Or what I completely mistook was that I would just wake up one day and it would just be gone. Like that's what I hoped. I was like, one day I'm just gonna wake up and the switch is gonna go off and I'm never gonna have to, I'm just gonna be a new person. Well, that is completely false. That is extremely far from reality, and there's a thunderstorm going on in the midst, which is actually really cool. You can see this lightning. When I was walking over here, there was this one lightning bolt that came down, and it was the biggest lightning bolt. It looked like a spider web of lightning. It was in the sky. It was really cool to see. And I'm actually really enjoying the weather. But anyway, so what most guys will do is they'll try to fight the external femdom addiction. And so you're never going to win if you're trying to fight femdom on the external femdom. So you don't beat femdom by fighting femdom. And it seems counterintuitive, but I'll talk more about this in the next segment. And remember, the next segment will be directly from one of the videos, and there's like 100 videos in the 7-day challenge. It's just one of them. I'll post it. I'll probably post another one that I upload just so you can see some of the content. And so you're not going to be successful. You might be successful for a week, a month, maybe longer if you fight femdom on the external, but in the long run, you're going to relapse. And that's why so many guys get so frustrated, because they're like, well, I feel like I'm strong, I feel like I have willpower, I feel like I'm smart, and yet I keep on relapsing. And that's the same thing that happened to me for a long time, and it's because you're trying to fight the addiction. And so you will say, well, yeah, I'm trying to fight the addiction. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to show you how to fight the addiction, and I'm going to show you how to do it successfully so that you can ultimately get to the point where you don't relapse. And you don't have to worry about being attracted to it. Because what happens with willpower is that because you never released all the crap in your subconscious, it's this magnet that's going to keep on attracting you back to the self-sabotage, the self-destruction, the addiction, whatever it is, it's going to attract you back to it. And so until you can come to terms with that, you're never going to get to the root cause of femdom, and you're always going to relapse, and you will continue to relapse for the rest of your life, most likely. And because addiction is degenerative, essentially, it's likely going to get a lot worse. It's not going to get better. And it's a complete misconception that you're just going to wake up one day and it's going to be solved. It's going to be fixed. It's not going to happen. So you have to be proactive and get this stuff handled. So the next video that I'm just gonna post right after this one, I'll just transition right into it here, will be from the 7-day Femdon Annihilator challenge. So you can see a video. It's going to be on how to get to the root cause. It's just one of the introduction videos. And I'll probably post another guided release or death meditation from, or at least part of it from the course, and maybe some other stuff. So that's always my goal, is to I want to help people as much as I can for free. And then the goal is that I offer resources that are low in cost, and then I offer stuff that's more in depth if you wanted to go into 12-month courses, individual coaching, group coaching. So it's that way it depends. So it's if I just had the ability to just put out as much free content and spend all my time coaching people for free, I would do it if I had that option. But it does take a fair amount of, I go in this pretty hard. I've got hundreds of videos that I've filmed. I do, I write a lot. I'm always thinking and reading. So it takes a fair amount of time. I love doing it. I love helping. All I want to see is if I can just bring as many guys out of that femdom addiction as possible, just because I know how devastating it can be when you feel like you keep on relapsing and you really have no idea why the hell this is happening. So anyway, that's going to be the next video. It's going to be directly from the 7-day challenge, and it's going to be how to get to the root cause. And without further ado, let us hop right into it. Enjoy. Welcome, guys. So this video is going to be all about how you get to the root cause of femdom addiction, and why most guys fail, and why you just see so many guys relapsing and time again not succeeding. So this drove me nuts for years, and I felt like I could go a couple weeks, maybe a couple months at my longest, before I would inevitably relapse. And so it started me on this quest, this journey of trying to figure out why I would relapse and why I couldn't seem to stay out of the addiction. And it really created this learning process where I started getting like biofeedback. I started getting kind of success in some areas, and then I would, examine those areas in more depth. But ultimately, to simplify it, and really what the next 7 days, I've really distilled it down into what I feel like are the kind of key principles that when you work on them and you can understand them, you can begin to effect lifelong change to stay out of an addiction. Because while it's all great to, be able to stay out of Femdom for a month or a couple months, at the end of the day, if you still end up relapsing, it's like if you are trying to quit alcohol, for example, or you're a heroin addict or, some sort of substance, what does it really matter at the end of the day if you can go an extra couple weeks without doing it, if you then inevitably relapse and binge? And so that's really the whole idea of 7-Day Femdon Annihilator, and Femdom Destroyer is a much more in-depth version. And really the advantage with the 12-month Femdom Destroyer is that you're able to be held accountable for a full 12 months. Because what I found in the beginning was that I would start prolonging my kind of gaps. So when I say gaps, I mean I would go longer out of Femdom addiction, and then the time that I would relapse would also get shorter. So I could feel myself making progress, but I was still relapsing. And so that process probably took, I want to say a year to a year and a half of me going in and out of relapse and noticing that the periods were getting shorter. But what I think is kind of like this danger zone is the first 12 months, because you're ultimately, I think, unless you have already worked on yourself a lot, and when I say work on yourself, I mean doing stuff like meditation, release work, energy work, just kind of, self-help stuff, personal development stuff. If you've already done that, maybe you could do this in a shorter amount of time and stay completely relapse free. But in my experience, in that first 12 months, expect that you're going to relapse, just because you're doing something that's quite hard. And as I talk about a lot in some other videos, the longer that you've been in it, to me, the harder it is to get out. And maybe that's just common sense, but it's like if you've been in it for years, you've ingrained yourself in so many ways to think negatively, to have bad habits, bad tendencies. And so you gotta unwire all of that junk and then rewire it. So I always say, to unwire it, all the crap that you've, built up through Femdom addiction, through bad habits, through negative self-talk, self-sabotage, self-doubt, right? All these terrible negative habits, just to unwire all that, you're not there. That's just unwiring is bringing you to baseline. That's just to, that's bringing you out of the grave, out of the deficit to ground floor. And now we've got to then ideally build you up and into an impressive building. So it does take time to do that. And so what I found is that by having accountability, by being in a group for a full 12 months, you're going to really solidify all the progress. But nonetheless, this 7-day challenge is really effective at getting the ball rolling. And even if you decide to just not take Femdom Destroyer, you can keep on rewatching these videos and still get a lot of the benefit from the ideas. So anyway, let's go more into the root cause. So essentially, what this idea kind of revolves around is this idea that when most people try to target an addiction, so when you're trying to target Femdom addiction, what most people would end up doing is they try to fight the Femdom addiction. So I always say, think of it as this is you, and the addictions that you have, Femdom addiction is like the circle that goes around. What most people are doing is they're trying to attack the circle, and it's being generated from yourself. So what ends up happening is you'll break down the external Femdom addiction for a little bit of time, and that's generally where, a couple of weeks or whatever it is, and then it's going to come back, and then the relapse happens, and then you fight like hell to break it down again, and then you're out of it for a little bit, and then it comes back, and it's going to keep on coming back as long as you're just trying to fight the Femdom addiction. So getting to the root cause, it's kind of counterintuitive, but you actually don't fight the Femdom addiction. You change your core identity, you change your core self, and you do a ton of release work. Because with the release work, essentially your subconscious is what is fueling a lot of the self-destruction, a lot of the self-sabotage, a lot of the success barriers. And so you don't really realize that this is going on. And believe me, before I started doing this type of work, I didn't realize this either. Before I started diving into really how you affect change, I didn't realize this. I just thought that Femdom addiction was going to be something that I thought it was a genetic thing, that in order to beat it, you would just have to get really good at willpower. Like, you just have to get like ultra disciplined. And I can tell you that doesn't work either. I can tell you that there was a period of time where I was bodybuilding like crazy. I was hitting the gym sometimes twice per day. I was just smashing the weights. I was huge. And I did go a period of time of a few years where I didn't really do any Femdom. But what ended up happening after that period is I ended up relapsing 10 times harder. And that's when I fell into the complete depression for 2 years and a really long time. So it's like it eventually caught up to me. And because what you're doing with willpower is you're essentially just suppressing things even more, right? All the trauma that you have, self-doubt, you're just stuffing it even more. And you're just basically like tightening it with willpower. And eventually the pressure builds up so much that it just fucking blows open. And that's what happened with me. So while you may be really strong and good at willpower, I can tell you that eventually the gasket is going to burst, and you're going to end up, regretting it, because then you fall into an even deeper depression. So to avoid that, we got to get to the root cause, and we do that by really doing a deep dive into the subconscious, releasing pretty much as much of the trauma as we can, so that you don't have that negative energy that's feeding it. Because again, if you've watched some of the other videos, you know that negative energy, or actually maybe some of the videos, I always forget, like if a video comes like further or later in the course, either way, essentially negative energy wants to spread. So when you have this trapped negative energy in your subconscious, it wants to spread. And the good thing is that by cultivating really good energy, it's called high vibration energy, HVE, or low vibration energy, LVE. And when you have the LVE trapped in your subconscious, it wants to spread. So that would be through Femdom addiction or other addictions or negative looping. There's a whole host of different ways. Some people are more inflicting damage on other people. Other people are more like inflicting damage on themselves through doing drugs or alcohol or self-inflicted wounds, or it could be a whole host of things, But the good thing is that by decreasing LVE, low vibration energy, and increasing HVE, high vibration, the high vibration equally wants to spread. And that's why a lot of times when you see people at really high levels, and it's just like, man, that person's just winning in life. It's like, it seems like everything they do, they just succeed at, or they just make money at, or they just, they're just winning. Well, it's because that they've cultivated that really high level of high vibration energy. And it's just like the same thing can happen with the drug addict or the homeless person. It's the same thing, it's just on the complete opposite end of that spectrum. So that's something to start to wrap your head around, is that it's really the same thing, just at two polar opposites. And of course, most people are kind of right in the middle. Most people are not homeless, they're not heroin addicts, but they also haven't really cultivated a lot of high level energy either. So as I say, it's actually in many ways a good thing that you have these crazy, debilitating addictions, because it actually opens the door for you to say, enough is enough. I'm actually going to change my life. I'm going to work on these things. I'm going to cultivate high vibration energy. I'm going to unlock and unleash my subconscious and all the crap that I've been accumulating, and I'm actually going to work on myself. And then you can affect a tremendous amount of change. And so it's just a matter of realizing that in many ways, getting to the root cause, it's not about just powering through. It's about really releasing and letting go a lot of the crap. And that was hard for me to really come to terms with, because like I said, I was coming from this kind of power lifter, bodybuilding background. That's what I had done for pretty much all my 20s. And so I was from a very aggressive, very like just go full throttle. And I actually think that that can be incredibly useful as well. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, we can smash into how you can just get a massive amount done while still working on your subconscious. Because I think ultimately you'll hear, and I was actually on this like psychology call today. It was with this psychologist, and he was talking about how, you know, he took everyone through like a meditation, and it was like very relaxing, and it was like very much like, oh, you just, you know, positive affirmations and do a meditation. And it's like, okay, that stuff is good, don't get me wrong, but in order to be a killer, you know what I mean? Like in order to be Michael Jordan, in order to be Kobe Bryant, I'm just using basketball analogies, I don't know, what's another one, but you have a new memory. I don't know what that's about. In order to be, that was just something that popped up on my cell phone. In order to be a killer, to get a lot of stuff done, I mean that in a good way, you have to be also very grounded in the physical as well. So I think that you've got to be able to, it's not, oops, sorry for hitting that mic, sit up a little bit. Oh, it's not just a matter of being all like, oh, let go and be super spiritual. It is that. That's like 50% of it. But it's also a matter of being aggressive when you need to be, knowing when to put the pedal to the goddamn metal, and, you know, man up too. So it's both of those things. And I think going forward, a lot of these concepts are ones that I want to cover a lot more in depth, because I think that in the personal development community, there's not enough of that. It's too much of this wish-wash, positive affirmations, just let go, don't focus on any sort of material things. A lot of times when you just let go, material things will come into your life, but I also think that you need to be very rigid in many ways, and sometimes you don't want to let go. Sometimes you actually want to be like aggressive and a badass too. So I think that there's a combination, but nonetheless, that's for another video. That's for another topic really altogether. To boil it down, to get to the root cause of femdom addiction, it's not a matter of fighting the femdom addiction. It's a matter of doing inner work and getting rid of all the crap that has accumulated in your subconscious, and working on that, and realizing that it's going to be a process, and also realizing that the low vibration energy wants to spread, but just as equally as you start cultivating high vibration energy, and we're going to work on these things, but as you start cultivating the HVE, that also wants to spread. And so again, it's that stark contrast between the homeless person that's completely just gone to a downward spiral and LVE, and that, you know, billionaire or whatever, or that's in just massive amounts of HVE. So once you can learn how to get in that high vibration energy, I always say you're going to be successful. I'm going to make you successful. I'm going to make you a winner. then it's just a matter of how much of a winner do you want to be, right? I always say it's not a matter of, you know, can you become a millionaire? I'm going to make you into a millionaire if you want to be. I'm going to make you into a highly successful person. It's just a matter of how many millions, right? That's why I always tell people when I'm coaching them. It's not a matter of are you going to become a millionaire. You get into HVE and you stay in it, and you learn how to work on yourself and cultivate all these skills. Abundance is going to flow to you. It's just a matter of then how much do you really want. So that's the good news. But essentially, if you're wondering why you've kept on relapsing in the past and you feel like no matter how hard you fight Femdom, you just can't seem to stay away from it, it's essentially because you're fighting the Femdom external addiction when you need to be releasing all the held tension in your subconscious. That's essentially what it boils down to. And that is going to be kind of a lot of the further lessons that we go through are going to be centered around that. But again, day 1 and day 2 are centered around anger and courage, which are really more a just being a badass and taking action, because I do think that when you're first starting, that's what it requires. I don't think that you necessarily want to just let go right away. I think you do want to be very, very much kind of upset at what you've done and get angry about it. I think that helps. And then you step into courage, and then you start realizing that then I start tying in more of the release work later on into the course and the challenge to really start to tap into the subconscious. But I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. But just realize that there's nothing wrong with you, and that you absolutely can beat this. It's not something that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life. It is something that you have to work on for a while. And I would also really kind of highlight the importance of looking at it as really a full kind of 12-month process. I think that seems to be kind of like that length of time that it takes, in the sense that you're going to make progress, a lot of it, in the next week. Don't get me wrong, but you likely will have relapses within the first year, but you just have to keep on sticking with it. And by realizing that you're going to have some relapses, you're not going to get so demoralized. Because for me, what would happen is I would always relapse, and I would say, that is the absolute last time that I'm ever going to watch a Femdom video. This is it. And then what would happen, because this is before I knew how to work on letting go and subconscious work and energy work, I would then, when I wasn't doing that, I would then end up relapsing again. After I said, this is my last time, this is it, I would end up relapsing again. And then I would be 10 times more depressed, because I'd be like, Jesus, like, I thought that was my last time. Then the same thing would happen again. I would say, you know, I'd relapse, and I'd say, now this really, for fuck's sake, this is absolutely my last time. This is it. This time is different. Then another couple weeks go by, whoosh, would relapse again. And then again, 10 times more depressed. And that's what ultimately led to the 2 years where I was just like, screw it. What's the point? What's the point in trying to escape Femdom? I'm just going to relapse anyway. You know, and that led me to 2 years of basically binging on it straight. I'm not joking, like 2 years straight. So realizing that it's not really your fault when you don't know how to work on yourself, and that by working on the subconscious, you will at first still relapse, but the key is to notice that your relapses are less frequent and they're less long in duration. And when you really start to work on these things, what you notice is that before, when you realized like, or when you felt like you were getting pulled into Femdom and like you had no control, now what'll happen, this is at like kind of more intermediate levels, but what will happen after you started working on yourself, doing the releases, going through and working on yourself, you won't feel that same like charge around Femdom. Whereas like before, you felt like you were literally like a chain was like wrapped around you and it was like pulling you into the Femdom addiction. Now, after you've worked on yourself, you still might be like drawn towards it, but you will start to realize like you have a choice, and like you're not as drawn. Like there's less charge that's attracting you towards Femdom. So then you will be able to actually start having days where you're like kind of think like, oh, maybe I want to relapse in Femdom, but then you actually don't do it, you know. And for me, that was like a huge game changer, because before, whenever I felt like I was going to relapse, I would always just relapse. Like I had no self-control. Whereas now, as I started letting go of a lot of my trauma and doing a lot of energy work, now sometimes I'd be like, oh, maybe I might relapse on Femdom, and then I just wouldn't do it. I wasn't drawn to it the same way, and now I'm not drawn to it at all. I don't even really have to worry about it at all. So that's really the ultimate goal that I want to get you guys to. And you really want to get to this point, because until you can get here, until you can retrain yourself completely and really get into the root cause, I really do believe like you can never be super successful in your life. I think you could have moderate levels of success, maybe, if you really wanted to condition yourself to live with a Femdom addiction, and you could manage it so that like maybe you were only doing it on weekends or something. I don't know, maybe. But to really reach like a high level that I'm sure all you guys want to be at, I think that you have to completely handle Femdom, because what ends up happening is it's a degenerative thing where, you know, you may be going like little bits of time where your relapses are kind of short, but then there's going to be one where you just fall into a big relapse, and, you know, you're just wasting so much time, so much energy. And what I would find too when I would come out of the relapses is that not only was I wasting all the time in the relapse, but oftentimes it would take me days or even weeks to like really reset myself back into like the flow of the workflow. And by the time I was getting myself like finally like back on track and reset, after my Femdom addiction, by the time I was finally getting myself reset, I would basically then be relapsing again on Femdom. So it's like this just never ending cycle. So to sit there and think that, oh, I'm just going to get to the point where I can kind of still do it but do less of it, I really don't think it's going to work. I think that if you're a true Femdom addict, which I absolutely was, I think you just have to completely get it handled. Sorry, but my hair is like crazy. I forgot to tie it, so it's like all hanging down. But in order to, if you're a Femdom addict, to completely, you just got to realize you got to get it handled completely. And that's going to involve working on yourself, doing the inner work, do the releases, really start to understand the core ideas and principles, and really diving into the release work. And by doing that over time, you will be able to completely end it. And then as more time goes by and you continue to work on it, you won't have to worry about relapsing. But realizing that relapses are likely part of the process in the beginning, and that's cool. It's really important to tell yourself that. Don't try to relapse, right? Like, I mean, you know when you're just like relapsing because like you're bored versus like an actual like, I've been pushing myself hard, or I'm depressed and I'm relapsing. Like there's a difference, but realizing that relapses are part of the process will help a lot, only because then you're not so depressed when it happens. And that's just going to make the process a lot easier too. So it's going to be an amazing next 7 days. I got tons of stuff lined up. I got missions ranging from stuff like doing cold water showers to doing stuff like that'll make you uncomfortable, like just like walking in a public place, to worksheets where you fill out answers. I got all sorts of stuff lined up, and plus videos, plus guided releases. So it's really a pretty comprehensive challenge that I set up. And again, if you're looking to dive into this stuff deeper and, you know, have even more of this, more accountability, and really in a full 12-month setting, I do highly recommend doing Femdom Destroyer, the 12-month course, because that is going to really hammer it home and really solidify all the work that is done in Femdon Annihilator. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching it. I appreciate everybody who has picked this up and has decided to come along on this challenge. It means a lot to me, and I really just want to see you guys succeed. That's it. If I can bring as many people as possible out of the despair of a Femdom addiction, That's really what I'm trying to do right now. That's it. It's a nasty goddamn addiction. It really could wreak havoc. And I think people that have never been in the depths of femdom don't realize. Oh, I gotta sit up a little bit. Oh my God, cracking my back. It feels better. But I think that the people that have never been in it don't realize how devastating, how destructive it can be. And so the more guys that we can help out and bring out of that, the better everything, the whole world can be. Because femdom addiction, like I said, it's nasty, and when you keep on relapsing and you don't know why, it can be super devastating, just depressing, because it's just like, why is this happening? I don't know why. Well, we got the answers now, and that's exactly what Femdon Annihilator is all about, is getting to the root cause, ending it once and for all, but also realizing that it is a process. But ultimately, get this stuff handled. I'm telling you, I handle femdom, all other areas of my life start excelling. It was like this lead weight that was attached to my ankle that I was always walking around with. And I knew it too. Like I said for a long time, I was like, femdom is like, it's the one thing that I'm scared that like I said, man, I've beaten alcoholism, I've beaten heroin addiction, cigarettes, video games, all of that stuff. But like femdom was the one addiction where I was like, I don't know, and it's gonna be hard as hell for me to beat this. And I also knew that until I beat it, I was never gonna be successful in my life. So, and likely it's the exact same thing for you. And you know that you gotta work on this. So we're gonna get this handled, and I believe in all you guys are gonna start taking off in your lives. And then hopefully some of you can start helping other guys and bringing them up as well. And that's really the ultimate goal. So without further ado, let's hop into day one. And I hope you enjoyed this video on getting to the root cause, and it started giving you a bit more hope and kind of painting a little bit of a better picture as to why you have kept on relapsing. So get to the root cause, end it, unlock your subconscious, and that is what is going to ultimately annihilate femdom.